Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In the previous video, we discussed about the brain, and today we are also going to be doing a continuation on the brain. There are some parts about the brain which I didn't touch on, and I want us to continue on from deeper structures within the brain and move on to blood supply within the brain. So today I want to let me start with the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus is located above the pituitary gland and sends its chemical messages that control its function. It regulates body temperature, synchronizes sleep patterns, controls hunger and thirst, and also plays in some aspects of memory and emotion. So now, as we move to pituitary gland, so sometimes the master gland, the pituitary gland is a pea-sized structure. It is found deep in the brain, behind the bridge of the nose. So the pituitary gland governs the function of other glands in the body, regulating the flow of hormones from the thyroid, adrenals, ovaries, and testicles. So the pituitary gland receives chemical signals from the hypothalamus through its stalk and blood supply. The hippocampus. So it's a curved seahorse shaped organ on the underside of each temporal lobe. So the hippocampus is part of a larger structure called the hippocampal formation. So it supports memory, learning, navigation, and perception of space. Now, I want us to move and discuss further uh, the blood supply and the central nervous system. So I want us to check on deep ventricles and cerebral spinal fluid. So deep in the brain, we have four areas with passageways between them. So they also open into the central spinal cord and the area beneath the arachnoid layer of the meninges. So the ventricles manufacture cerebrospinal fluid or the CSF or a watery fluid that circulates in and around the ventricles and the spinal cord and between the meninges. So CSF surrounds and cushions the spinal cord and brain, washes out waste and impurities, and it also delivers nutrients. Okay, now let's move to blood supply to the brain. So we have two sets of blood supply, blood vessels which are going to supply blood and oxygen to the brain. So we have the vertebral arteries and the carotid arteries. So the external carotid arteries extend up the sides of your neck and are where you can feel your pulse when you touch the area with your fingertips. So the internal carotid arteries um, branch into the skull and circulate blood to the front part of the brain. So the vertebral arteries follow the spinal column into the skull, where they join together at the brainstem and form the basilar artery, which supplies blood to the rear portions of the brain. So the circle of Willis, a loop of blood vessel near the bottom of the brain that connects major arteries, circulates blood from the front of the brain to the back, and it helps the arterial systems communicate with one another. Then now we move to the cranial nerves. So the cranial nerves, we have the cranial nerve 1, which is the olfactory nerve. It allows for your sense of smell. So the second cranial nerve is the optic nerve that governs eyesight. The third cranial nerve is the oculomotor nerve, which controls pupil response and other motions of the eye and branches out from the area in the brainstem where the midbrain meets the pons. The fourth cranial nerve is the trochlear nerve, which controls muscles in the eye. So this one emerges from the back of the midbrain part of the brain stem. The fifth cranial nerve, we are going to have the trigeminal nerve. It is the largest and most complex of the cranial nerves, with both sensory and motor function. So it originates from the pons and conveys sensation from the scalp, teeth, jaw, sinuses, parts of the mouth and face to the brain, and allows the function of chewing muscles and much more. Then the sixth cranial nerve is the abducens nerve. So this one innervates some of the muscles in the eye. Then we have the seventh cranial nerve, which is the facial nerve, supports face movement, taste, glandular, and other functions. We have the vestibulocochlear nerve, which is the cranial nerve 8. It facilitates balance and hearing. The ninth cranial nerve is the glossopharyngeal nerve, which allows taste, ear, and throat movement and has many more functions. Then the vagus nerve, which is the 10th cranial nerve, it allows sensation around the ear and the digestive system and controls motor activity in the heart, throat, and digestive system. The 11th cranial nerve, which is the accessory nerve, innervates specific muscles in the head, neck, and shoulder. Then the 12th cranial nerve is the hypoglossal nerve, which supplies motor activity to the tongue. Okay, so with that, we have covered blood supply to the brain and the cranial nerves. And each nerve, as we have seen, plays a very important role in the parts from the neck to the head and inside the brain. So we are going to have a connection. So the connection of these 12 nerves, it's going to send impulses to the brain. So it's like they all coordinate the brain in one way or the other. So when we have one nerve which is not functioning well, or maybe a part of the, let's say the eyes have a problem, it could be linked to the brain through the cranial nerves. So if you allow me, I'll do another video on complications which may come as a result of brain damage, diagnosis, and for now, allow me stop there. Kindly share the videos and subscribe and like the videos. Thank you.